The DJI Osmo Mobile 6 is a great little gimbal for vlogging, for travel, and for lifestyle content. And in this video, I'm going to go through all the features and I'm going to show you how to get the most cinematic video from this device. So is the Osmo Mobile 6 better than the OM5?
Well, the 6 gimbal now has a focus zoom wheel, and there's also a mode button and mode indicator.
So that's two big improvements in my opinion.
When you first get the gimbal, you're going to need to install the Mimo app if you haven't already. So you're going to need the app to activate the gimbal before you use it. If you can't actually find the app in the normal places, you can download it directly from the DJI download page. If you do install the app this way, you might need to configure your phone's security to allow the app to be installed. And that's totally up to you whether you think it's a good idea or not. And actually, if you're using an Android device, I believe that you can no longer install the Mimo app from the Google Play Store. On the other hand, for the Apple version, you can still find it in the normal App Store. So it's always a good idea to calibrate your gimbal before using it. But if you use auto calibration and you find that your phone still isn't level, you can adjust this manually in the Mimo app.
Now if you're out filming and you can't remember what a particular button does, or maybe there's a feature that you can't remember how to activate, then there's actually a quick way to remind yourself.
Open the settings in the Mimo app by tapping the 3 dots in the bottom left corner and go to the general settings and then go to the gimbal functions overview. And here you're going to find 3 different screens which tell you what each button does and the meaning of all the various lights and indicators. A new feature of the Osmo Mobile 6 gimbal is a quick start feature, and this will automatically start the Mimo app as soon as you mount the phone to the gimbal. So this feature only works with more recent models of iPhone, and it's not going to work with your Android, unfortunately. In fact, it doesn't go directly to Mimo. Instead, it just sends you a notification and then you can tap the notification to open the app. So I think that does actually make it slightly easier, especially if you have lots of apps to scroll through. Now, the fact that it sends you a notification is really important because I actually just wasted quite a few hours trying to work out why this feature wasn't working. Probably more hours than I will ever save using this feature. So make sure that you don't waste that time. First, make sure your iPhone isn't in Do Not Disturb mode like mine was, because in this mode you won't get any notifications from any apps, including Mimo. And next, go into Mimo settings, select the General tab, scroll down and toggle on Quick Launch. In your iPhone settings, you're also going to need to enable a few things. So open settings for iPhone, go to DJI Mimo app and tap that. Tap notifications and allow notifications. And make sure that location and precise location are enabled for the app. Not sure why you have to do that, but you do. And now when you place the iPhone onto the Osmo Mobile 6, you should get this notification. So just tap that and it will connect to the gimbal and go directly to the camera so that you're ready to start filming. The Osmo Mobile 6 has an extendable handle, which allows you to take images of yourself a little bit more easily, and you can also use it to get a greater variety of angles and shots. To make your videos more cinematic and more engaging, it's always a good idea to have lots of different types of shots. A high angle looking down, or a low angle looking up, crane shots, drone style shots, and so on. Now here's another tip. The Osmo Mobile 6 has quite a limited tilt movement, and this can make it a bit hard to angle the phone towards yourself or a subject. To fix this problem, you can adjust the angle of the head of the stick. If I pull it out a little way now, I can angle the phone camera towards myself. I can, of course, extend this further as well. Now, if you place the gimbal on a flat surface using the legs, and maybe you want to track yourself here using active track, you will see the pan motor is kind of at an angle. So I generally find it's a good idea just to raise the pan motor a little and make it level with the ground. It's just a small thing, but you might find that you get smoother results. One thing that I use all the time on the Osmo Mobile gimbals, if you double tap on the trigger, you'll recenter the gimbal. So while you're filming, switching modes and trying different shots, the gimbal quite often ends up at weird angles. So just double tap the trigger and off you go. And actually, I'm pretty much using this feature every shot.
The DJI Osmo Mobile 6 comes with 4 basic modes, but there's also a couple of secret ones. And to access them, you need to know some special moves. Anyway, first let's look at the basic modes and how to use them.
Follow mode keeps the horizon level, but it follows your pan and tilt movements. Now, the Osmo Mobile 6 actually has a pretty limited tilt movement, but what the gimbal does is allow you to make a downward movement with your arm while keeping your phone stable. One shot you can use is to sweep down a tall building, for example, and then come to rest on a subject. And it could be a person, or it could be something else interesting. But follow mode is a good all-purpose mode, which allows you to capture a wide range of shots. Tilt lock mode locks the tilt axis of the gimbal so that the camera is going to stay at the same tilt angle while you pan round. Now, because the Osmo Mobile 6 has a limited tilt axis, you don't have to move too much before you reach that limit. And now you can see that the camera starts to tilt even though it's actually locked. So really, tilt locked on the OM6 is just to make sure you remove any small movements from your hand as you're filming a subject. For example, you can try a walking tracking shot, or circling around the subject can be a really cool cinematic shot. And with the tilt axis locked, small wobbles are going to be removed. So FPV stands for first person view, and this mode allows your movement on all 3 axes: roll, tilt and pan. Basically, it's like follow mode, but now when you roll your wrist, the camera actually rolls with you. So you can switch to this mode if you want to be a little bit more creative with your camera movements. A pull out or a push in shot can look really cool if you rotate the camera at the same time.
And the advantage of the FPV mode is that you can combine the rotation movement with other movements. And you can actually create pretty complex movements with your shots. You're only limited by your imagination.
One option is just to shoot freestyle, and you can kind of experiment moving freely, trying this and that angle and rotating your wrist and all the rest of it. Just feel free, go where your instinct takes you. And then when you come back to this shot, when you look over it, there's probably going to be a lot of stuff that doesn't really work. So you can just select the best bits from the clip when you come to edit. The final mode is spin shot, and this allows you to rotate the camera further and more smoothly than if you're using the FPV mode. So if you just select spin shot using the mode button, start recording, and then use the control stick to rotate your camera. And the motor is going to rotate the camera a bit more evenly than you can doing this shot by hand with the FPV mode. And as well, like I say, you can go further. Again, push in or pull out as you're filming for some really cool B-roll shots.
Now, one of the signs of an amateur video is an overuse of the side-to-side shot, otherwise known as a pan shot.
It's very tempting when filming just to sweep left to right or right to left to capture the whole scene. And I've seen some videos that are just made up of nothing more than side-to-side shots, one after the other, and it doesn't really look that good. And one way to avoid this bad habit is to start thinking about motivating your camera movements.
Now, I've actually made a whole video lesson about this for members on Patreon. But for now, I'll just give you a quick explainer. Motivating your camera movement will make a huge difference to your videos. And it's actually often the difference between a non-pro video and a pro video. And one of the ways that you can motivate your camera movement is by following something.
Instead of just moving the camera side to side, for example, you could follow a car, a pet, a human subject, or really anything that's moving. Another way to motivate a movement is to follow the lines in the frame. Look for frames within frames and then move through them. Moving through archways, windows, or other frames within the environment can create really cool looking shots. And the extension stick allows you to move your camera through narrow spaces that other cameras couldn't fit through. And actually, when you shoot this kind of shot, I would really recommend shooting at 60 frames per second if possible, and slowing the shot down to 30 or 24 frames per second. Because the real challenge of this shot is to stop the phone moving, wobbling around up and down. As humans, we're not machines. When you do this shot, your arm tends to move up and down slightly, and you can see that it's not like a perfectly straight line. We really want to try to keep the movement as straight as possible and to reduce these up and down movements. But if we shoot at 60 frames per second and just move a little bit faster through the space, we should find that the up and down movement is less noticeable, because now we can slow it down and it's going at the speed that we want, but moving our arm faster will get rid of some of those wobbles. And now when you're motivating your camera movements, try to think of the emotion the movement is intended to create. So a slow motion tracking shot gives a kind of dreamy effect. A sweep up to the top of a high building creates a sense of spectacle and awe. Flying low along the ground creates a sense of exhilaration.
So now for those secret hidden modes I told you about.
Lock mode basically stops the gimbal following any of your movements. To enter lock mode, just hold down the trigger. And now when would we use lock mode? It's not a mode I use very often, but if you want the camera to stay facing the same direction continuously, then use lock mode. So maybe you want the direction of the camera movement to change, but you also want the camera to stay facing in the same direction. For example, if you want to move forward in a straight line, and you also want the camera to be completely still, except for this forward motion. To enter sport mode, double tap the trigger and hold. In this mode, the gimbal motors become more responsive to your movements. Again, it's not a mode I would use very often, because I think to get this kind of shot, I would just remove the phone from the gimbal and then shoot handheld.
One of the main strengths of this gimbal is its solo filming features. So you've got the extending handle, there's Active Track 5.0. It's small and it's light, so it's easy to fold up and take with you.
If you're filming yourself and you want the camera to track your movement, you can mount the gimbal to a regular tripod. So this tripod here by Andur, well, it's pretty lightweight, but it also has a good height. Now switch gesture control on in the Mimo app and make sure it's set to follow you as well. Make the gesture and now your smartphone is going to film you walking around or moving around while you talk to camera. When you switch to the selfie camera, the Mimo app automatically starts tracking you. By default, the app places you in the middle of the frame, but you can actually adjust this position using the control stick. So I actually found that sometimes Active Track causes problems when you are filming yourself walking. Because it tries to keep you in the same position, sometimes it starts wobbling as you move and it doesn't look good because it's constantly adjusting to try and force you into the middle of the frame. And for that reason, I don't usually use the tracking when I'm filming myself walking.
Anyway, here's some more Osmo Mobile 6 features that you might not know about.
The M button switches modes with short taps. So long press to power the gimbal on or off. Tapping the M button 3 times will put the gimbal into standby. The motors are going to power off. And if you want to wake it up again, just tap any button. The button with the 2 curved arrows is the switch button. Press it once to switch between the front and rear cameras. Press twice to switch between landscape and portrait orientation. You can also actually just simply twist the smartphone with your hand. So if you press 3 times, you're either going to access the quick menu in the app, or you're going to switch between photo and video mode. And that depends on how you've set it in the Mimo settings. So you have to go in and choose what the 3 taps does. Now we have this zoom focus wheel, we can zoom in really easily, and the gimbal should take most of the shake out of the shot. The Mimo app can also change lenses while recording, but not when shooting at 60 frames per second. So if you're shooting at 60 frames per second, it means that it's just going to digitally zoom in on whichever camera you started with. So for example, if you start recording with the main camera, when you zoom in with the wheel, it just keeps using the main sensor. But if you start with the ultra wide and zoom in, you might find that you get really horrible pixelation. Just press in the wheel like a button to switch between zoom and focus. In the Mimo app, top right, you will see a lens symbol with letters ZM or MF, which tells you whether you are in zoom mode or manual focus mode. So this allows you to make nice, smooth focus pulls while you are recording. A nice focus pull shot can really add a pro look to your videos.
When you're filming, you might find the action of the gimbal is quite loose.
When you move, it takes a while to catch up with you. And when you stop, it takes a second to slowly come to its final position. When you're filming, you need to compensate for this. If you're moving to frame a subject and you stop on the subject, the gimbal will probably keep going and it won't end on the correct frame. Try to stop slightly before and then let the gimbal slowly ease into the final frame. You can also change the sensitivity of the motors using the follow speed in the settings, and this allows you to reduce this ease in, ease out effect. One question I'm asked a lot is, can the Osmo Mobile 6 handle a smartphone with extras? Can we add a case, filters, lenses, and so on? The Osmo Mobile 6 is a small gimbal. It's not designed to carry big camera rigs. In fact, DJI doesn't even recommend you use a case, let alone anything else. However, the Osmo Mobile still has the mounting port for counterweights, which is on the side of the roll motor here. And this has been a feature of all the Osmo Mobile gimbals since the third version. If you have a lens mounted to your phone and there's too much weight on that side, you can add a counterweight to this side. These are actually ones that I bought from Alanzi, but I think that DJI still makes their own. So let's try adding some extras. This phone is an iPhone 12 Pro Max, so it's already pretty heavy. This is a clip-on ND and polarizing filter by Sandmark. When I place it on, the Osmo Mobile 6 seems to handle it fine. I can move the gimbal around without any problem. If you're filming in daylight, you might find that your shutter speed is a bit too fast and then the video looks less smooth. But if you add an ND filter, you can slow down the shutter speed. Even if you don't actually want to control the shutter manually, just adding an ND filter will still slow the shutter speed and therefore create smoother looking video. I do like these Sandmark ND filters. They kind of add a warmth to the image and the polarizing element makes the colors richer. It's almost like adding a LUT or a preset look to your video. The only downside of these clip-on filters is that light can leak in the side and it can cause flares.
So let's look at a different option, and this one is by Polar Pro.
This is a case and filter by Polar Pro, so it doesn't add too much weight, and the Osmo Mobile 6 clamp fits around it no problem. So instead of mounting the phone with the gimbal powered on as you would normally with the Osmo Mobile 6, I decided to use the old method. With it powered off, mount the phone with the extras and now move the phone around in the clamp to balance it. So I found this setup also worked pretty fine, and the motors of the gimbal were able to handle the extra weight. So this is a case by moment with a filter mount and an ND32 filter. Again, I found the gimbal handled the extra weight just as well as with the Polar Pro. So this is the same case but with an anamorphic this time. Again, I balanced it before powering on. And remember that you can also adjust the clamp vertically. Just move it up and down at the back here. So I did manage to balance it, and so far I haven't needed any counterweights. The good thing about the Osmo Mobile 6 clamp is because it's arched, it does seem to avoid pressing down on this side button of the phone. Again, the Osmo Mobile 6 was able to handle the extra weight of the anamorphic lens. And in fact, I actually started to feel like the motion was a little bit smoother with the extra weight. As we know, the heavier the camera, the less it's gonna shake or jitter around. And I was able to perform focus pulls with the wheel and the anamorphic. Finally, I tried the heavier Moment 58mm tele lens. And actually, the gimbal seems to be fine with it. Again, I was able to perform focus pulls. I could even zoom in a little. And obviously, with a conversion lens, you can't switch the lenses of the camera. The only issue is that the 58mm tele obstructs the gimbal if you turn the handle on the roll axis too far. So that gives you an idea of what you can add to your smartphone. If you wanted to add more, I think you would need to use the counterweights. But like I say, DJI doesn't officially recommend that you do this. And my guess is that it will place a little bit more strain on the motors, especially with the heavier 58mm. And this means that your gimbal battery might run down faster, and the motors themselves might wear out a little bit quicker. So it's your call whether you want to do this or not. But I found that it worked fine. So if you want to add a microphone or a light to your Osmo Mobile gimbal, you're gonna need some kind of mounting device. And this is a pretty cool one from SmallRig. It has two arms with cold shoe mounts, and it sits between the handle and the mini tripod legs. So I actually bought this one from AliExpress, but You can also get them from Amazon under a different branding. So I've just added a little mic here and a light to show you how it would look. And these are both items from SmallRig. And as always, there will be links in the description of the video for all these accessories.
And I just want to say a massive thank you to all my members on Patreon who are helping to support me and this channel and allow me to keep making these videos. If you want to learn more about smartphone filmmaking, you can join us on there and you can improve your skills from beginner to advanced and get making some awesome cinematic videos.